This is Outnumbered. I'm Andrea Tanteros, and here today, Sandra Smith, Ainsley Earhart, Jedediah Bila, and today's hashtag one lucky guy, Geraldo Rivera, and he is outnumbered. Welcome, Geraldo.
Hi, Geraldo. The role I was born to play.
Yes, and we have a segment being surrounded.
I do. Man, oh man.
And Geraldo, we have a segment on mustaches today.
Perfect.
Facial hair.
There you go.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ainsley.
Just
Thank you.
for you, we programmed special.
I appreciate it.
But also, we're going to get right into this Gaza and Israel, this conflict,
situation.
which you've spent some time in the region, so we'll be looking for you to weigh in. Violence resuming in the Middle East after a shaky truce. Palestinian officials claiming an Israeli airstrike hit the compound of Gaza City's main hospital, causing casualties. Fox News has no verification yet of any injuries. The Israeli Defense Force is saying it was misfired Hamas rockets that hit the hospital. This follows Israeli fighter jets striking Hamas rocket launchers and a rocket manufacturing company in Gaza after Hamas fired another round of rockets on Israel. All this just hours after the UN Security Council calling for a ceasefire in a midnight emergency session. And President Obama phoning Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday to express his concern over the mounting Palestinian death toll, which was reportedly topped 1,000 over the weekend. But on Fox News, the Israeli leader saying blame is on Hamas.
Hamas has broken 5 ceasefires that we accepted and we actually implemented. They rejected all of them, violated all of them. Israel is not obliged and is not going to let a terrorist organization determine when it's convenient for them to fire at our cities, at our people, and when it's not, when they can restock. We'll take the necessary action to protect our people.
Meanwhile, the leader of Hamas has this to say when asked in an interview what his group wants.
In order to stop the bloodletting, we need to look at the underlying causes. We need to look at the occupation. We need to stop the occupation. Netanyahu doesn't take heed of our rights. Mr. Kerry, months ago, tried to find a window through the negotiations in order to meet our target, to live without occupation, to reach our state. Netanyahu has killed our hope, killed our dream, and he killed the American initiative.
So over the weekend, Geraldo, Benjamin Netanyahu said on Fox News, he said, look, we've offered a ceasefire 5 times. It's been rejected by Hamas, and he's fighting back, and they're winning. And a lot of people are calling the UN Security Council for Israel to stop immediately, an immediate ceasefire. How do you think this is going to play out?
First of all, the clips that were just played, Andrea, I think both those men are absolutely right. On the one hand, Prime Minister Netanyahu is absolutely correct. No nation should be asked to endure rockets coming into the civilian areas. He's absolutely right. And Israel, as the President of the United States has said frequently, has the right to respond. It has the right to defend itself. On the other hand, and spoken about much less frequently, there is this continuing occupation. You have the fact that Gaza is an open-air prison. You have the fact that the Israeli settlements continue to expand in the West Bank. What is maddening is our too cool for school president, 81 golf sessions. Why in the world doesn't he take both these men by the ear, as you know, figuratively speaking? We give money to both. Rally the Qataris and the Turks on the one hand to insist that Hamas play ball here. We give billions to the Israelis. Say this is the time right now. Stop the bloodletting. Let's take this occasion to forge a final settlement in this enduring conflict. Otherwise, what will happen? Hamas will fire all the rockets they have. They'll run out of rockets. There'll be the ceasefire for another 12 months, 18 months, and it'll start yet again, Andrea. The President of the United States has to be engaged personally. With all due respect to Secretary Kerry, at the presidential level, at the level of the heads of state, this has to end now.
But Sandra, that doesn't seem to be happening. President Obama sending John Kerry, he was recently in Egypt, to try and broker some deal, which is more likely now that the Muslim Brotherhood isn't in control. They, of course, are aligned with Hamas.
And we're possibly going to get some sort of announcement, as our ground reporter, John Huddy's been reporting, that there could be another Egyptian broker deal announced shortly after the Muslim holiday. That being said, John Kerry, as Geraldo points out, came back a bit empty-handed. We didn't get any sort of resolution there. Madeleine Albright, as we're going to talk about in a second, actually gave him a lot of props for everything that he was doing over there. But as Benjamin Netanyahu said on Fox News over the weekend, it's come to a level of absurdity. I would ask you, Geraldo, I would challenge you to tell us if you're looking to the President of the United States to lead us through this, how exactly? Because both sides are still so far apart. You're saying to be more engaged, but how specifically?
I think that from the point of view of our position vis-a-vis Israel, remember, we give, Sandra, about $3 billion in direct aid to Israel. We have never used that as a lever for negotiating with Bibi Netanyahu. You must do this. You must negotiate. Otherwise, we're going to withhold some of this aid. We've never done that. Why not? We do it with other nations. Why can't we do it with Israel? We love Israel. The United States stands by Israel. We've demonstrated our commitment for more than a half a century here. There would be no Israel but for the United States. Now's the time. Bibi, now's the time for courage. Now's the time for you to take it. What is this intransigence leading to other than a cycle of violence where Israel is becoming increasingly a pariah in the world? The boycott movement is, Israel will be like South Africa was when the white-only government controlled. It will be boycotted everywhere unless there's some movement.
I want to get Jedediah and Ainsley in here. Ainsley, this seems like an opportunity, though, for the Israelis to take out a lot of these tunnels that the Palestinians are using to bomb them. I mean, I think this is an intractable situation, and I put a lot of blame, I agree with Netanyahu, on Hamas.
Absolutely. Israel's trying to close down these tunnels, find these tunnels, shut them down in these tunnels, and Hamas continues to strike back. Hamas is using a hospital as their headquarters. They're using schools as their headquarters, firing missiles where children are, where mothers are, families are. And, you know, Hamas is telling their people, die for the cause. Stay and die for the cause. And when Israel is striking Hamas, Israel is warning them so that they can evacuate these areas. But yet Hamas is never going to win the war against Israel, not at least on the ground, not in battle, but they're trying to win it by getting public opinion to sway in their favor, because they're saying we have thousands of civilians that have died for our cause. When they're setting up missiles in hospitals and schools, what do they expect?
And isn't that true, Jedediah? I mean, Israel could flatten Hamas if it wanted to. So Hamas's best bet right now is to try and get more support, to put more pressure on Israel, maybe some kind of pressure like Geraldo was explaining.
I see that, except I think that these regional issues are bigger than the United States. Like, I'm not sure that the United States, any level of leadership on our part, I'm starting to doubt, is going to change these very serious regional issues that exist, even if we had a president that was inspired to be more engaged.
Give me 30 seconds. I'll give you the peace plan. We already have American troops keeping Egypt and Israel from fighting in Sinai. Very low-profile mission. We have not lost one single American GI on the southern border with Egypt. There has been peace between Egypt and Israel. I want walls like the Israeli wall. God bless it. I think it's working on the West Bank. A wall on the Gaza Strip. I want Americans to be the peace force. I want only these three people involved, just the Israelis, the Palestinians, and the Americans. Forget about the United Nations. The United Nations, you could vote for the dissolution of Israel. You'd get a unanimous vote except for the United States and Israel. The United Nations is useless. Any of these international organizations are useless. Just the three parties, the United States, commit GIs to a place where they can do some good.
Well, we will see if the president is listening, and we're going to take a look at the bigger picture now, because the United States is stepping up pressure on Moscow, releasing satellite images which it claims show Russian forces firing artillery shells over the border into eastern Ukraine. This is former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright is weighing in on the crisis and the ongoing turbulence in the Middle East. When asked if the impression is accurate that the United States is stepping back when it comes to conflicts abroad, she said no. Here's her take.
There are an awful lot of things going on that need understanding and explanation, but to put it mildly, the world is a mess. The president has been pushing the Europeans. The Europeans have to step up. I am appalled, frankly, at the slowness of the Europeans in understanding what is going on.
Now, Andrea, this isn't obviously all Barack Obama's fault, but do you think he plays a role here in terms of not being as proactive, as Geraldo was saying in the former segment, in terms of not being ahead of the game and taking a leadership position and saying, America's the leader of the free world. We need to do something first, and the Europeans may follow.
And they would follow if he was making a strong and compelling case for stricter sanctions. But the European Union knows that the United States wants to lead from behind and take this type of mentality. The Germans, they don't want tougher sanctions. I mean, it's tough really to rally the EU. And similarly, Jedediah, both the Americans and the Europeans have tossed away and slimmed down their defense budgets in favor of a welfare state. So you really do need both parties. I do agree with Madeleine Albright that the EU does need to step up, but they need to know that the United States is with them on this to work together, and they don't. They don't. So there's no reason for them to flex their muscles when we're, once again, not getting involved.
Now, Geraldo, there's been a lot of talk about sanctions in the same way there was a lot of talk about a red line in Syria. This administration seems to value talk. Do you think they have woken up to the fact that talk is not going to fix these problems?
By the release this morning of satellite imagery showing conclusively, Jedediah, that Russian artillery was fired into Ukraine. In other words, this is not a Ukrainian civil war. This is now an ersatz Russian invasion of Ukraine. Going back to Andrea's point, I think the Germans are finally moving in the direction of more severe sector sanctions. In other words, Germany can pay more for gas and oil. They can cut their trade with Russia. The Russian economy already on the verge of recession. Our economy 15 times larger. When you add the EU's economy, 30 times larger than Russia. We can hurt them. The Germans must move. The French must move with them. The British have to put aside their greedy profit motive because all those rich Russians live in London now. Now, with this documentary evidence that Russia is actually invading Ukraine,
I don't see them doing that, Geraldo.
What about America?
I don't.
Well, I think you'll see
What about our country? Our country needs to step up. Our president has an opportunity to lead and to show the rest of the world who the superpower is. If he would stop jet-setting around and vacationing and golfing and fundraising and get to the Oval Office and put that pen to paper that he always talks about, set up some meetings, pick up his phone, and make a difference in the rest for the world, then
I don't disagree with
we would
any.
be seen in a different light.
I don't disagree with any of that.
This is the worst case, Geraldo, of senioritis that I've ever seen.
But there's also the polling issue, Sandra. There's the issue of Americans, when they're repeatedly polled, say that they don't want us more involved in Ukraine. They don't want us more involved in Russia. They don't
because
want
they see things aren't exactly going that well when we do step in and get involved.
Do you think that influences the president's policy, though? Do you think he sees those polls and he's catering to the public rather than what maybe he should be doing?
No, I think the White House is sticking to their agenda. But listen, you hit the nail on the head, Andrea. When you look at Europe and the United States is saying we need to impose these tougher sanctions, we need to get the EU on board here. The EU's economy is already it's very fragile, and imposing such sanctions on Russia would be very difficult for these economies. So they need to see that we're steadfast and that the United States is going to lead through this, and that we are going to be the leader of the free world. I think that the fact that they're not imposing tougher sanctions, the EU is not imposing tougher sanctions, is a sign of the way that they see the United States right now, and I think we should be careful of that.
Well, hopefully this administration realizes it's time for some American leadership. We hear how the rich keep getting richer. Well, the typical household is getting poorer. The shocking study that shows just how much American families have lost in the past decade. Also, we're getting a preview of President Obama's potential plan to act on immigration reform without Congress. And right after the show, catch more from the couch from the web. Join us for Outnumbered Overtime.
Where's Harris? OT, baby.
FoxNews.com/Outnumbered-OT and click on the Overtime tab. I don't do it.
Oh, this is Geraldo's first OT.
Questions, comments, or tell us what topic you want to hear more about. We will be waiting. You better be there.